Tonight, I laying in my bed. And I know the doors are locked. And I know the gun's on the table. And it is, because I believe in the Second Amendment. Somebody say amen right there. But nonetheless, and let's just suppose I hear some rattling. And it's inevitable somebody's in my house. And my wife sits up. She's like, honey, somebody's in the house. Somebody's in the house. And we men were like, no, they're not. Go back to bed. But nonetheless, we hear them, right? So let's suppose the tragedy of all tragedies transpires. And I get up in my little PJs and I go walking out into the living room, and not only is there a crook in my house, but one of my kids has been brutally beaten and laying face down on the living room floor. Now, the nature within me would do everything it could, not just to protect my kid, but to get back at that dirty, rotten crook for what he has done to my kid, right? And so here's what would happen. Here's the natural response of Gregory Dwayne Locke and probably everyone in this room. Chase him out of the house and do everything you can. I mean, I'd be shooting that gun in the air or shooting it at him. I'd be screaming, cussing, fussing, and hollering. And let's just suppose I finally get to it, and I tackle him like a football player, grab him around the legs, throw him to the ground, flip him over, put my knees in his shoulders, hold his chest to the ground, spit in his face, take that pistol and begin to whip him and knock his teeth down his throat, stand him up and shoot him dead right there in my front yard. That would be the natural response, because that's vengeance. And that makes us feel better about ourselves. But it doesn't change the situation one bit. So then, same analogy, I'm laying in the bed. I hear something in my house, and I get up. My wife's concerned. I walk out, and there's one of my children brutally beaten in the living room. This time, the guy goes running out as quickly as he can, but just about the time he's on the porch, I pull out my gun, and I say, you stop right there, crook, you stop right there. And I hold him on the ground, and I get on the phone, and I call the law, 911, you got to get here, I got an emergency. And let's suppose I hold him there on the cold grass in my front yard until the law gets there, and I let the law do its work, which is the way things ought to work. But I let the law do its work. And I hold the gun on him, and they come and they arrest him. They put him in the car, and they take him to jail. He goes to court, and he gets a life sentence, if not a death sentence. That would be justice. So the one would be revenge. That's the natural tendency of our heart. The next would be justice. But then just suppose, that I'm laying in bed. My wife says, honey, I hear something in the house. And I grab my gun and I get up and I walk out, and there's my kid, face down, beat on the floor. There's the perpetrator, easy to catch. By the time he comes busting out the front door, glass flying everywhere, I jump off the porch and tackle him, knock him to the ground, spin him over, take my knees and stick him in his chest and hold him there to the ground. And big tears well up in my eyes and begin to trickle down on his body. And I bow my head and I pray for him. I stand him up, I hug him, tell him I forgive him, and turn around and walk back in the house. That's the most unnatural response any of us would have. You know why? Because it's God's response of mercy. You say, well, Brother Locke, that sounds kind of barbaric. That sounds kind of butcheristic. Well, let me tell you something. In not so many ways, God walked in on us one day, and we had brutally beaten his kid to death. Spit in his face and left him on the floor and could care less who he was and what he came to do. And right about the time we were running and gunning for our life, trying to live in our rebellion and our sin and our ungodliness and our perversity, God rescued us when he didn't have to. Vengeance would have been God could have killed me on the spot, because he's God and he can do that if he wants to. Justice would have been let the law do its work, die in my sin, and go to hell for all of eternity. He'd have still been God to let that happen. But mercy would be to catch me, get my attention, and forgive me for the brutal crime I had committed against him. And that's the gospel. That's the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's a mercy that we do not understand, but because we have obtained that mercy, how dare us not administer that mercy to others? And we are called to give people a level of love and forgiveness and patience and second chances that only the grace of the gospel of Jesus Christ could allow us to even give. Because mercy is not natural. Vengeance is natural. Justice tastes good. But mercy is the most godlike characteristic in the entire universe. And that's why it's difficult to give out. But maybe you're here today and you're struggling with who you are. You're struggling with your identity. Man, you got a jacked up home life. Whatever. I don't care how old you are, how young you are. All of us have our problems. We could pass the microphone around and we could talk about a lot of problems and miss lunch and dinner talking about all of them. But at the end of the day, your identity is not found in your problems. Your identity is not found in your addiction. Your identity is not found in your home. Your identity is found in Jesus Christ. And until you submit to his mercy, you will never truly know who you are. But we are in him. He is in us. And he has called us in this wicked generation to stand up and stand out and show forth the mighty praises of God. And if you've been delivered from darkness, don't go back to the foolishness that God saved you from to begin with.